Good afternoon and welcome to Tetewathá Partyline Talkshow. I'm your host, Len Stacy, and today is MCK Friday, and I will be joined by two chiefs. In the second half of the show, I'll be joined by Chief Gina Deer, but joining me right now, and we're pre-recording this from earlier this morning, Chief Kahsennenhawe Sky-Deer. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, well, Luann.
How is it going?
Pretty good, actually.
Very busy, I guess.
Well, I just had long weekend vacations back to back, so I'm all rested and ready to go. There is a lot of work, going on right now, so much needed R&R, but refueling is always necessary in this line of work. So.
Absolutely. So I guess let's start with the Indian Day School issue, because it seems to be it's still alive. People still questioning things. We had several people come on the talk show to talk about it. Chief Mike DeLille was on. We had Tom Deerhouse on not so long ago. Kenneth Deer talked about, but still there's a little bit of a confusion.
Yeah, the deadline of today was if people wanted to submit a letter of objection or a letter of support. It is by no means the deadline for compensation. So I know there's still a lot of people in the community that are scrambling and thinking that if they don't, do this by today, that they're going to miss out. And that is not the case. We put out a press release on May 2nd, trying to assure the community that, this deadline is not like an ultimate deadline, and that people are not going to miss the opportunity, because there are hearings that are going to be coming up in Winnipeg next week, if I'm not mistaken, or in 2 weeks' time, that Grand Chief Joe Norton will be attending and, kind of putting on the record, I guess, Kahnawake's perspective, because we did have 11 Indian Day schools here in the community, and saying that this one-time compensation is never going to eradicate or make up for all of the harms and the residual effects that we're seeing in our community today. So I just wanted to reiterate that on the air today, that if you're worried that if you don't get a form in submitted by today, that is not the deadline for compensation, because once the class action lawsuit moves forward, the forms will be available in the community, and we'll have 1 year after that.
Okay.
So rest assured that,
I just had a question. 11 schools in Kahnawake, but are all 11 schools listed on the sheet?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure, because I seen some people and I never was actually able to go and check the names of the other schools. I know the three main schools were on there.
Yeah, they're all listed on there.
Okay, perfect. Because I know people were talking about Bush School and another school, and I didn't even know there were 11 schools.
But there might be schools that were in the community that are not listed.
Okay.
So it's important that they verify.
Okay.
Because I guess at some point there was, other religious denomination schools that might not have been considered Indian Day schools.
Okay, perfect. Now let's move on to the meeting last night.
Yes.
It was a positive meeting, I would guess, right? We're ready to roll now?
Yes, we are. At the previous meeting, I thought, we had consensus on the draft residency law, and that we were going to be moving forward. But at the last minutes, a community member brought up a concern about one of the definitions. So we had received consensus to change that definition. I believe it was Ungwe ancestry. And what happened was, because we do have our legal counsel attend just in case, something comes up that questions that we might not be able to answer from, a legal standpoint. So we had a lawyer that wasn't necessarily on the file attend at the previous meeting. And when the definition change came up, you can't on the fly have foresight of any kind of residual impacts it was going to have throughout the law. So when we took it back and we started to incorporate the changes and see where it would affect the law, we said, oh my God, what it did was it created an unfairness for individuals who were born and raised in the community who only had two great-grandparents, as opposed to somebody who was coming from another community with two great-grandparents. They had more right and entitlement.
Oh, wow.
So we didn't want to create an imbalance like that. We said, I don't think that's what the community was going for. So let's, make them aware of how just that little change in that definition created that kind of impact. So they completely agreed that wasn't the intent with that change. So we reverted back to the original definition of Ietsénhaienhs ancestry. And that was the only outstanding matter from all of the meetings that we had, where, you know, we pretty much had consensus that the law as it stands right now covers all areas. From when we did the consultation with the community, you know, they wanted to be able to see permits for people who have pretty much been here all their lives,
right,
approved Kahnawake residents, 3 great-grandparents, married back in, or, you know, have always been a part of the community. And then they wanted to see permits for people from other communities who are maybe coming to work here, going to school here, or are in a common law relationship with a community member. And then this thing about humanitarian permits.
Right.
So I think we covered all areas. And because this is an urgent law, we needed to get something in place right away. Of course, we've been using Bill S3 as a means as well to say we got to have control of who could live in this community, because it could be a free-for-all. People can come and go, and then a lot of times when people get angry about membership, it's not membership they're angry about. They're angry about residency and who's residing in the community. So now that we've separated the two and we have standalone laws that govern each, I think we'll have more sense of control and enforcement.
So since it's been an urgent thing, what are the next steps now? How far away is it from becoming law?
Well, I have good news. We did secure a registrar who will be presiding over both the KKL, the Ganyagahaga of Kahnawake law, and the residency law. So I'm not allowed to mention at this point who it is. There's still some contracts that are being developed as well. There's going to have to be an official appointment from chief and counsel for the individual. But now that is secured, we have a few more regulations that need to be developed. And as a matter of fact, there's a meeting coming up this Monday, May 6th. It is going to be at, let's see, Peacekeepers Community Room, the PK station, from 6:30 to 8. And we will be presenting the custom code on great-grandparent lineage and changes to the regulation concerning the Community Review Board. So once we have those two things, and there will also be a requirement to put a call out for that, you know, individuals who will sit on this Community Review Board when there are issues that arise, I guess, if people aren't happy with the decision. It's kind of like, you know, appeals body and reviewing decisions to make sure they were done on the up and up, so to speak. And yeah, so we're thinking that, I think KKL, the membership law, we've been waiting a long time, and that should be operational, I'm hoping, by end of summer. You know, because there's got to be a training process too for this person who is going to be the registrar to understand the law in and out, to understand the regulations in and out before, you know, and then we have to revise all the forms because they said Council of Elders and all that. So everything is in the process. Everything is moving along very smoothly. I'm very happy to see that we're at this juncture now in our community where we'll start to see things moving along.
Was there a lot of input on this last night? Or
on the residency? No, it was more at the forefront.
Okay, so
last night was like, did they agree that that definition was an error, you know, in terms of the residual impacts, and they agreed, and then it was done because we had gone through everything. Quick. Yeah, it's urgent.
You know, here, you know.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I've said it's an urgent law. We don't have to go through every. It was more the, how would you want to call it? The major areas of the law that we addressed. It was posted to the community for, you know, the 30-day period, and we're going to post.
Was there feedback or?
Yeah, of course.
Good,
oh, yeah, and that's what it was funny because the community members who attend meetings regularly always say, "Really? Do people even read this stuff?" You know, and that's just the way our community is. And yesterday we had a language and culture network meeting. And when I look at the faces who are there and other boards I sit on, it feels like everybody's doing their work in all these pockets.
Right.
So maybe you don't attend every single thing because you realistically can't.
No.
But what's good to know is that, you know, the community is doing work on behalf of the community. And, if you're a volunteer and you're somebody that's pulling weight somewhere, then good for you.
Yeah. And we have a lot of pockets of people like that.
Definitely.
So, it's on a good note. So something to look forward to maybe by fall time, right?
Yep.
You would say like September or...
Yep. So if people have been following the...
Let me ask a question. Does this now, once the law's in place, then where does it go? Like, does it have to go like to government agencies? Does it take care of anything, or this is just for local use?
Yep.
Okay.
And that's us asserting our jurisdiction and our ability to create laws for ourselves and our community.
Perfect. Okay.
It's kind of become a custom, right?
Yeah.
In our community, we know that there is a membership law, but again, we're trying to get away from that terminology, calling it Ietsénhaienhs Kahsennenhawe law. And because of Canada's imposition, they always feel like their legislation should supersede ours, and that they know what's best for us. And we've come a long way.
So how would that affect this S3 thing then? Will that stop that from happening within our community, or are they still going to try?
They're still proceeding the way we understand of registering, because the way they view status and the Indian registry isn't membership in the community.
Yeah.
If you did a Section 10, I think we talked about that before.
We did. Yes,
whether
we
you're
did.
a Section 10 or a Section 11, so the way they view Kahnawake, they don't recognize our membership law.
Okay.
But we said we don't care. We don't need your blessing, Canada, to have authority, and the will of the people in this community will decide who's going to be a part of this community, not
Absolutely.
you. So anyway, so as I mentioned, May 6th, if you've been following the evolution of the Ietsénhaienhs Kahsennenhawe law, we have a regulations meeting coming up this Monday, May 6th, PK Station, community room from 6:30 to 8. And we will be looking at two main regulations: the custom code on great-grandparent lineage and the regulation concerning community review board, and then any other simple forms. Like I mentioned, they're all being modified. So
in terms of the community review board, how many people are they looking to have? I mean, you don't want it that big and you don't want it too small. What would be like ideal number?
You know what? It's funny that you asked that, because I'm drawing a blank right now if it's 3 or 5, because we had gone through some change. It's nothing big, because the
we
Council
know
of
what
Elders was 15.
happened. Yeah, right. That's why I'm asking. It made me think of it when you were talking.
It's 3 or 5.
Okay.
Drawing a blank.
I had to ask.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, another topic. We'll swiftly move on here. You had
S3 update.
S3 update. Yes.
So as the community is aware, S3 has been a hot topic for many months now. We're trying to keep it in the forefront of all media. And we did put a call out for community to become a part of this S3 Defense Coalition, because we don't want the perception that it's only MCK that is concerned about this. We know the whole community is. We've done extensive engagements now across the board with organizations, with the schools, with the community at large through special community meetings. It's been all over social media, and we did put a call out for community members to create like a grassroots community group to work on behalf of the community to put forth a position. Now, where this position is going to go, we've been discussing, like, do we want to go right to Ottawa and try to give it to, the chances of getting a face-to-face with the minister or the Indigenous Affairs Minister
right now, no.
Exactly.
Ain't happening,
especially after the AFN meeting this week. But, we definitely... I just want to commend the community members who have come out.
So there have been people.
Good. Initially, I think we had 25 people answer the call. Right across the board, you have elders, you have youth, you have just concerned men, women, and it's just amazing to hear their passion and that they're willing to do this work on behalf of the collective.
Excellent.
And that's why I said you're never going to get 100% of anybody to participate, but the fact of the matter is they're there. They're actually coming on the air.
Yes, on Tuesday.
On Tuesday, May 7th. So I hope you will tune into that, and they will give you an update on some of the work they've been doing. The S3 working group that was comprised of like myself, Gizistiguio Jocko, Alan John, who've been going out in the community, have been assisting them. Any resources they need. We provided them with all the survey results.
Yes.
Because we did the S3 survey. That will probably be released to the community next week.
Oh, awesome.
And so
Did you get a lot of participation for that as well?
for the survey? I would, for a community of our size, I think we say the representative sample that's like a fair representation is just around 300. So
Yes.
I think that's about what we got. So, it's really a reflection, I think, of how the community feels about this. And so they reviewed all of the content, all of the comments. We took out, key things that we wanted to highlight in the position
Because there had to have
paper.
been themes, correct?
Oh, yeah. Yep. I guess actions that the community wanted us to take, how we should fight it, how, why is the government doing this? So a lot of anger, a lot of statements, I think, directed to the federal government. Like, in this day and age, you're still like,
Because it hasn't changed,
exactly. It's
hasn't
all
changed.
assimilation, and then people have been talking about this white paper policy 2.0.
Yeah.
So the mantra of the government hasn't changed in 120
No.
years. It's just the
No.
faces have changed. And also the approach, because
Yeah.
now it's not so blatant,
Yeah.
but you could see the writing on the wall.
And then you see the ties to the reconciliation too, because was that just a ruse to work down in terms of their what they're planning or proposing to do?
We call it smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, really.
It's like, say all the nice things, all the right things to kind of romanticize you.
Throw a
and,
full dollar, throw a few dollars here and there, and
Yep.
not big, little peanut money. And then, a lot of communities don't have the leadership like our community has to be able to fight. It's not the same reality across the country for different communities. Yeah. And that plays an impact that, we'll throw a few dollars. Okay, well, we're right inside with you.
Yep. And that's what you said. It's funny because the group was saying, Kahnawake has always been, like you said, at the forefront of fighting and standing up for, issues and for our rights. And that when push comes to shove, maybe we're kind of divided in the interim, but when we need to, this community can come together and
usually great things happen.
Exactly. And this, to me, is one of those fights that collectively, if we stand together, we're going to protect our community. And maybe the ripple effect, when other people see what Kahnawake is doing, they'll say, yes, we're jumping on board. We're going to do what it takes to protect our community too, because the threat is real.
Yes.
We've been calling it the threat of assimilation, Canada's newest assimilation threat, make everybody Indian. And then when the time comes for lands, because that's really what it's about, like land extinguishment, ceding your territory. And then after that, you're a municipality, you're just like everybody else. So we need to do what we have to do for ourselves, and
let me ask you a question on that. In terms of being like everybody else, do you consider our community like that, to be a municipality and be like anybody else?
Of course not.
Okay.
Of course not.
Now, I hear community members say that, and it's usually people who have comments against the council or different leadership, and the first thing they say, we're a municipality, we're just like everybody else. And I don't get that sense, but
why? Because we have curbs now?
Possibly, I don't know. I'm just, I just wondered, from your perspective, I don't,
No way. I mean, we fight for the jurisdiction and the separation of what our community exists. Sure, we're in the province of Quebec, but do I say we're Quebecois? Do I say we're Canadian? Never. And that comes with your understanding of your culture and your history and knowing who you are. So if people feel that way, then they need an education check for themselves.
No, I thought I'd ask because, I've heard it a few times and, council's going to sell us down the river or this, that, and the other. But to me, I look at it, well, what else are other people doing? Because we could sit back and watch or fight where we can. And
I like what Grand Chief John Norton always says, there's only one side and it's the Mohawk side. We create those lines in the sand on ourselves. But we're all fighting the same fight and we're all one family and we're one community. And once we start thinking like that, like I said, I think
it gets scary because if we did, we'd be doing some great things. I mean, we do good things already, but we could be doing so much more.
And I feel like the community is hungry for that now. Everybody's sick of the division and fighting and, why is it like this? But we do it to ourselves.
And it's a lot of energy wasted instead of being put to some positive things.
Yep. And I was hopeful that, this coming at us was going to be that spark. And I still hope that it will be, you know, that community will wake up and say, wow, you know what, look at this group that took the time to draft this position paper. When you see it, it's really powerful.
Nice.
And we don't want to put it on MCK letterhead because, like I said, this isn't an MCK thing. This is all of us, Kahnawake, standing together and saying, you know what, Canada, try. You know, because we're always going to do what we have to do for us. No one is going to do it for us, you know. And we want to be the leader for the rest of the nations within, you know, Kahnawake territory and the Confederacy to say, look at, you know, we can do this. And I don't know how much time we have.
We have about a minute left.
I just wanted to mention that yesterday and here's another bonding thing, is language and culture. At the network meeting yesterday, Ietsénhaienhs Gina Deer came and presented an idea, because what's happening right now at the Confederacy level for language and culture, they have Ungwehuetneha cooperative. So they're looking at everything we're doing in our communities in our own little silo, right? All the resources, the books that are being developed to help preserve Kahnawake language can all be deposited now in an app.
Wow.
You know, where we could share everything that we're doing. So just feeling the energy and the spark of us working together, not just Kahnawake, but branching out, because now with technology and communications, the internet, the world is at our fingertips, and we could do whatever it is that we want if we could put our collective minds together for a positive thing. And like I said, it's unfortunate that people think like that, like, oh, the MCK, you're sellouts. We were born and raised here just like everybody else. And, you know, when you put yourself in a position to work for your community, you know, come and talk to us, see what we stand for, see what we represent. The entity is just one thing. I mean, we could dismantle that tomorrow and say, all right, we're not under the Indian Act. So what does that mean then? Who empowers us? The community? You still need a board. You still need someone to run the town.
Right.
So I'm all about looking to rethink Kahnawake governance if it's going to get us to a strong point where we're all together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me for this part of the show. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Tetewathá Partyline Talkshow. I'm your host, Len Stacy, and joining me for the second half of the hour is Chief Gina Deer. Welcome to the show, Gina.
Hi.
You were recently in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't remember all the details of the trip, but I'm sure you could share an update on how it went, and that's a beautiful state for sure.
Yes. I actually was invited by Marie-Ève Bordelot, who works for the City of Montreal as the Indigenous representative for Truth and Reconciliation. Reconciliation, I should say, sorry. She had asked if Kahnawake would be interested in attending a delegation that was going from the City of Montreal. She invited Kahnawake as well as Akwesasne. So it was based on economic development and technology.
Oh.
Yes. Air Canada had recently started a direct flight from Montreal to Phoenix because of the large amount of population that goes there, as well as the business dealings that are happening between the two territories or cities. And myself, along with Grand Chief Abram Benedict and Edward Roundpoint, went from Akwesasne. So we had an opportunity to spend the mornings with the delegation, going over some of the technological advances they have in the smart cities that they're trying to build. Primarily, the conversation was around the autonomous busing and connected vehicles. Autonomous busing and taxiing is where there is actual no driver. So it's quite innovative, and Phoenix is a city where it is socially accepted. So they're allowed to have these vehicles on the road, and the community is accepting of them. So they're kind of a leader in that.
That's really interesting economic development in mind when people are losing jobs.
Well, then they create new ones, right?
Oh,
There's
okay,
different
okay,
types of jobs that come along with that, and that's through technology. So, you know, it kind of goes hand in hand with what our Grand Chief Joe Norton has been looking at, you know, with Microsoft and blackberry sass and forest green. And we recently had an event at the host hotel for the teenagers, who went there and looked at, the AI or artificial intelligence and coding. I believe they looked at coding too. So it's trying to develop opportunities for our youth for the future, right? And where's it going? And we need to go along with it. A lot of the traditional lines of work will be eliminated over time, So it's really forecasting. It's definitely a big leap ahead. So a lot of people say, well, why would you go? Well, we need to plan. And that's not something we do enough of. Whether it be just looking at, the economy or even just replacing people. We've had a lot of people in our community retire recently, some high positions, and I don't believe there was enough planning for that. So I'm a big advocate for that. And this is something, I'm always interested in where we can move towards in the future and looking at, I guess, a larger picture.
It's interesting because it sounds like we're going to, and I have to say this, the Jetsons. I can't help it, but that's always been, as a kid, you always often think of that, that we're coming to that age. And I come to realize that people are thinking that way more and more.
Honestly, it is. I mean, when we looked at the vehicles that were there, they were only on display because when they actually got into one of those vehicles, we were off visiting the tribes because in the afternoon we went visit the tribes, right? So we were looking at these vehicles and the people sitting in there with their feet up and, working on their laptops. And I was like, wow. And this vehicle is driving them, to work or wherever they may be going. So it was really impressive. We did, however, have an opportunity to get onto a connected vehicle, and a connected vehicle is something that has a computer system that will alert the intersections that it's coming. So they're looking at that for emergency vehicles. It's already operating there in Arizona. So they're looking at it for emergency vehicles. As it approaches an intersection, it gives it the green light. So it eliminates the people from panicking and having to move out of the way, right? So they're looking at that. They also use it for public transportation so that you can get these buses moving quicker. As it approaches a light, it recognizes it and it gives it a green light.
What did the contingent that you went with have to say? What was their thinking?
Actually, they're so far into this field. I was really, really surprised because the city of Montreal is working on different projects, right? And I think one of the biggest challenge that they have is our weather. So it's pretty hard, but there is somewhere on the Olympic Basin where they were testing, I guess, these sort of vehicles. They're looking at the traffic issues here in Montreal and how can they, better serve. And the individuals were made up of people from different departments. And one of the consultants that was in this delegation actually lives in Chateauguay. So she was talking to me.
The wonderful Mercier Bridge, right?
Yes, about our traffic issues. And she works all over North America helping smart cities is what people who want to do these types of things. So she works on these different projects. We got into the traffic discussion here in Kahnawake, right? And I actually took her card because she's really well aware of what's happening here, and we do have some serious traffic issues. So it might be worth having a sit down with her, and having a discussion on this and help resolve some of them or at least alleviate it a bit. And it was a very diverse group of people, all looking to better improve the transit system for Montreal, and for us too. So
and there would possibly be an opportunity for us in terms of the business angle as well, possibly, right? If
absolutely.
We wanted to look.
And again, like the technological advancements and the field itself and where it's going and what. How can we participate? We talked about the train stop. She said she's been an advocate for that train stop, which is really funny because, I worked a little bit on that they were doing Ietsénhaienhs on economic development, looking at that project again. And I know Carl has been working on that also. So here's somebody who's been working from another side through Chateauguay and we don't even know each other. So it was beneficial all the way around to take this trip because, again, I had an opportunity to visit 3 nations out there, look at what they're doing with their economic development. Again, in the U.S., the tribes have a great opportunity for gaming. We don't have that here. Most, or if not all, have started. Actually, they all started, the three communities, with a casino. They took the revenues from that casino and they diversified and created different projects. And their projects are not the same. You know, they're doing something different in each community. Wild Horse Pass, the Gila Nation, was one place that we had visited. They have a resort with a spa, so that people who do go to the casino have somewhere to stay. The resort is absolutely beautiful. It's all traditional carvings, artwork. Everything about the building has a traditional component in mind, the way it was created. And they're the only place in Arizona that has a 5-star, 5-diamond restaurant.
Wow.
So it's really impressive. They have a racing track there. A lot of racing that
Horses?
goes on. Cars, and
Okay.
and even some boats. They built this lake and added to this lake, so the water obviously is hard to come by in Arizona. So yeah, they utilize the lake. A lot of activities go on there. So yeah, we were invited to come back at any time and check out, you know, their future development. What they had done was they had an organization like Tetewathá, but they found that it was easier to have working groups, because they're looking at so many different projects that they have working groups rather than just one organization, because it was too much to bite off, right?
Yeah.
So depending on what they're looking at, they put a group together and then they start working on that.
Okay, we'll take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Tetewathá Partyline Talkshow. I'm your host, Len Stacy, and today's MCK Friday, and I'm joined by Chief Gina Deer. In terms of this trip, what's the relationship, like, say, to here in our community when it comes to economic development?
Well, right now we're working on revising the DEWA mandate and having revenue generation split from DEWA Dunidzakta's mandate. And when I went out and looked at what they were doing in these other communities, it was really interesting how they have some of the same challenges we have, and I think, you know, we can take some lessons from it. And one of the communities actually has privatized land. Two of them didn't. It was primarily community owned. And the ones that do have privatized land have issues with the businesses that go and set up there.
Oh.
They make agreements with the private landholder. So we have the same issues here. And I wanted to see what they were doing out there and how they're working with it. And what they do is they have a economic development office, and people who are going to lease or create business have to go to that office, and they need to be part of whatever agreement is made with the private business and whatever they're bringing in, because there are franchises that they bring in. There's several franchises on their territory. Yeah.
So we're talking big. We're not talking little.
Oh no, the Great Wolf Lodge, for instance, is located there. There's premium outlets located on one of their lots, and yeah, so it was really impressive. Their growth is huge. So we have that challenge here because we have businesses that are here. We don't have a registry. We don't know who's doing business here, and sometimes it costs the community. We had an example of a business that was here and needed the fire department on not one but two occasions. And because that business doesn't have any insurance, there's nobody who pays the fire department back that sum of money it costs to go out there, right, and assist them. So we need to have a registry here in the community. And I know a lot of people get upset, you know, when like we're formalizing things, we're going to be a municipality, but you know, it's trying to be responsible. And that's what I'm looking at for community, because there are people who are coming here and they can create expense for us. And they need to have insurance. We need to have protection, you know, for them as well as ourselves. So there's a lot of things that we've been looking at in the way of governance for community. And this trip, you know, gave me a real eye-opener, and I see some of the similar challenges. And for myself, I'm advocating that we do some sort of registry for the non-native businesses that come here as a start. So at least we know who's here, who's operating, and, you know, what are they doing. So I've been working and pushing on that. We have an open for business document that was created. But are we truly open for business? And that's the direction that I'd like to see us head with economic development.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I know we don't have much time, so I wanted to get on to the Tioweró subject.
Yes.
We have got, the season ahead of us, and Tioweró has many challenges, right? We have a policy. We are amending the policy, but the enforcement aspect to it is difficult because people say, well, it's just a policy, it's not a law, and, the caretakers are not peacekeepers. So.
Can I ask a question? What kinds of things? Let's get specific. Just some examples.
For example, ATVs, right? That is one of the biggest problems in the territory up there. A lot of people are riding more than one on a bike. People are too young for the bikes that they are driving. They're going through the waterways. They're going through the plant life. And, it's very difficult for the caretakers because it's not like they can just seize a bike. And sometimes parents will say, okay, well, thank you for letting me know. But there are parents who say, you know what, don't bother my kid. We come up here because we can't ride at home, and, I'm going to let them ride. So it's become a real issue, and it's put the caretakers in a very, I guess, bad position, right? You want to do your job, but at the same time, you don't want to have confrontation. That's not what they're there for. So we were talking at the Tioweró committee to start looking at a campaign to educate, because we're not looking to fight with people. The policy is not there to prohibit people from enjoying the territory, but it's just to keep some level of respect, because unfortunately we have individuals who sometimes don't do that, right? So we're looking at running some campaigns. The ATV will be one of them. Kids need to have helmets on. You need to be one on a bike. Like there's certain things. We understand that there's nowhere for them to ride. So it is an issue. They're riding up and down the main road. People are getting dusted out, right? So again, I'd like to see, for future, looking at possible trail, a nice trail that's cut so they can, have an area to ride and alleviate some of the dust pollution, because it's an issue. The noise too, for individuals who live along that road, it's problematic. The building, again, there's a policy, there's code, and, sometimes people don't always adhere to it. They'll clear a little too close to a neighbor, or start to build too close to a neighbor. So it's hard on the caretakers, again, when you got to go there and tell somebody, well, you can't do that, and people aren't accustomed to that, because people just generally went up there, they got permission to build, and they just went build. But now there's such a population that we have to take into account, the neighbors, the size that you're utilizing. There's a lot of issues. And I think the information campaign that they're looking at is a great way to approach it. Because the policy was pretty thick at one point. We kind of chopped it down, because we were saying if people are not going to adhere to certain parts of it, then they're going to say, well, why adhere to any of it, right? So we only put things in there that, we could enforce, and are trying to make it, again, like I said, user-friendly, but keep the respect. We understand there's going to be a footprint, but let's minimize that footprint.
Mm. So it sounds like there's quite a few areas, though, that need to be addressed.
There is, because we have outside people coming into the territory, and they've recently placed some signs in French, because people are driving through the main road and going all the way to the back area, past the second bridge. And in the winter, people were getting stuck out there. So what they do is they go on Google Maps. It shows there's a road there, and they try and use it as a shortcut. And it's not. It's a private road. It's not a public road.
That's
right?
what I was going to just ask. I thought, I was going to say, I thought it was
that.
okay. That's the confused look on my face, because I wasn't sure. I was going to say, how is that possible? Because I thought you had to have permission if you weren't from either here or Kahnawake in order to be on the territory.
Yes, and we had signs, but in English, right? So people were not adhering to it, or they didn't understand it, or whatever the case may be, right? So now they've recently posted some in French. So we're hoping that people won't damage them, because it's the people who are going through there that speak French, and we want to ensure that they don't, that they know you can't go down that way.
Okay. And in terms of the campaign, what are they looking to do? Like,
Well, I think it's going to be with KTV.
okay.
Putting some pieces together. I'm sure they'll be looking at, media even. The season is going to be opening up soon and putting things out there. Because I think education is where it's at. That's really important, getting that message out there.
Because it seems like every year you hear some of the topics that you mentioned, that there are some concerns by the people who are there full time. Some people go up and they're there for the whole entire summer.
Well, people
living there,
Yeah, people don't know of all of the incidents that have gone on up there, but there have been some pretty serious incidents that have gone on, and our caretakers have handled each situation very well, but it's not part of their job. So long term, we're looking at maybe a conservation now that, the new house is almost finished and it has an office component. So kind of going down that road, saying maybe we need conservation up there, somebody with some training and some level of authority, because there's been domestic violence, there's been accidents, there's been many incidents. There's unfortunately been some deaths up there too. So it's a lot for the caretaker whose job is, nothing like that. To them it was supposed to be maintenance of the territory and kind of just watching out, for who's coming and going. Again, they have a lot of responsibility that they've taken on because people have asked favors of them. Can you go and light my stove? Well, that was okay. They didn't have a problem doing that with people who are going up there in the winter. But then now it's like 30 people. Can you go and light my stove?
How many houses are there now, or approximately?
There's close to 300 captains.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's over 200 anyway.
Okay.
I'm told closer to 3. I don't know the exact number offhand, but it's still growing, right? And
you want people to use it, but be respectful.
Yeah, absolutely. And we understand that, there's a big population there now, that things are going to change. So we're trying to forecast how can we better move into the future. The sand pit is another area, they're talking about, what are we going to do with that sand pit? How are we going to restore it? There's some ideas on the table. Nothing has been chosen at this point, but it's being looked at. And I think it's going to be very important, for us moving forward, because it is a large mass. There are some good ideas, and people want to see it, for community to utilize that area in some fashion, whether it be a park. That was one of the suggestions. So we'll see.
Okay, I have a comment from a community member, and what she says, issues were talked about before about making an area for four-wheelers, and in the end it was money issue and designate to make areas, and to make sure it's safe. Policing needs to be more enforced than just weekends. So, and this is from one of our listeners. So I'm assuming that it is, an issue.
It is. It absolutely is. And we want to ensure that, we start working towards getting that there. I've spoken to Lloyd Phillips, who was a chief, about, his new role. And I've reminded him, okay, Lloyd, this is part of the direction. And he's well aware of that too, It's been a big discussion at the table. And of course it is funds. It always comes down to funds. In the past, I wasn't on the Tioweró committee. I didn't hold the portfolio, but they had decided to utilize some funds that were given as a donation for the camping grounds.
Right.
For me, I've been a big advocate to have a trail for these bikers to go and utilize, again, safely, off the main roads, because we don't have it here in Kahnawake. We have to supply something, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I guess one of the other issues with regards to there is, the noise. Noise has been a big thing too, certain weekends, certain things. I don't go there. I used to years ago, but, you hear people talk about it and complain because they're going up there for peace and quiet and to get away from noise, yet sometimes there's more noise there than actually being home.
Well, I can tell you, I own the store up there in St. Lucie in the adjacent town, right? So I hear a lot of the complaints, especially being on council. I'm a captured audience when I'm working in the store. And all right, Gina, I want to talk to you about this. But I have to tell people, you got to be mindful of the weekends, right? If you want peace and quiet, try to go during the week, because everybody's going up there. And a certain time of year, Labor Day weekend, do not expect any peace and quiet anywhere. It's so busy. I had somebody at the store and they're like, I can't believe this. I came up here. It's my first time this year and I didn't get no rest. And I'm like, it is Labor Day weekend. You are aware this is
So
the
there are
busiest.
some key times,
Yes.
not to. Okay, perfect.
And during the week, it's nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the weekends. The kids are off or parents are off. They take the kids up there. And again, like I said, we don't have anywhere for them to ride their bikes. So they all look forward to going up there doing that.
And all kinds of bikes, four-wheelers and those other things.
Yes,
and,
yeah, they have so many different types.
We have about a minute or so. Is there anything else you wanted to update on? Any other of your files?
Well, the only thing I guess is we're close to getting this DEWA mandate done, and looking at creating something for revenue generation specifically. So I'm looking forward to doing that. It's been since the last term that we've been working on that. A lot of job opportunities seem to be happening, and we want to ensure that we continue along that path, which is why we had that event at the host hotel, which is why I'm taking some of these trips and looking at what they're doing in other communities, or just looking at technology specifically and how we can start giving opportunities to the kids, especially for those future jobs.
Yeah, because definitely will be changes as your trip illustrated.
Right.
The other types of jobs like taxiing and things like that, we're probably, if you look at places like a McDonald's and that, they're also
Absolutely.
getting away from people-oriented type jobs.
Yeah, you can order right on a panel when you go in McDonald's
and
now.
you don't even really need to speak to anyone. You do it right on your phone and drive through. So, we're starting to see more and more of that. Thank you, Gina, for dropping in. I know you'll be back. Lots of interesting news for us. Coming up on Monday, I'll be joined by KSCS's Chrissy Taylor and Kara Daiba. We'll be talking SafeGrad. Have a great weekend, everybody. Onigi Wahi. Up next with the 1 o'clock news is Paul Grafe. Have a good one.